And there are a few other sources, the Anonymous Conquerors a book, and a few other books. And then there is in something called the Florentine Codex. This is something that was compiled by a priest named, a Catholic priest named Sahagún. He was commissioned by the Spanish government to compile all the information on the civilization that was basically about to be completely destroyed. And say, you know, go in there, find out what their culture was all about. Because we think they're doing a lot of switching on us with the religion. We've forced conversions on them, but we think they're still worshiping their gods. Sahagún, he has his group of our people who were educated. Of course, they spoke the Nahuatl language, and those days, as an educated person, you had to speak Latin, and you had to speak Spanish, and in some cases, additionally, Greek, and with some of the priests, Hebrew. So that was part of being an educated person in those days. And so he has our people doing these investigations, and basically the majority of the people who are being interrogated or interviewed, what did they teach you at the universities? This is basically, and they went from concentrated on one large city, and then they went to others to compare and see if it was a similar information. And some of the stuff they just realized, well, they taught this university something a little bit different. In other cases, oh, this is pretty much the same thing. Oh, this just seems a little off. But of course, during this whole thing, they're not interviewing in reference to women. And you'll find this is, again, so it's like the women's importance wasn't there at all, even though in our society it was a very balanced situation. And so Sahagún gets years of work into this. He is a Nahuatl speaker, so he had learned. That was part of why he was commissioned to do this. And he compiles 12 books about this thick. And today it's known as the Florentine Codex because it was found in Florence in the 1800s. Been missing for about 300 years. He compiled all this, and you can take a look at it. A lot of libraries have it. Mexica movement, we have a couple of sets actually of the Florentine Codex. And it talks about the histories, it talks about philosophy, it talks about theology, the society, the etiquette, a whole bunch of different things. And that's why we were saying earlier that there are enough materials for us to reconstruct our own culture. Even though, say, like for me personally, I have no Mexica blood, I have no connection to Mexica directly, but it would be a way for all of us to reconstruct at least one of our civilizations so we can share, say, the Maya and the Yaqui or Yoeme can speak to each other in Nahuatl, and there would be a common language. So you have this Florentine Codex, you have something called the Cantares Mexicanos, you have a lot of different sources on how to reconstruct the language. Right now, over 1 million people in Mexico are already speaking the Nahuatl language, officially. But the estimate is that it's closer to 5 million because there is a denial of indigenous culture in Mexico. Officially, as far as full blood with no Spanish blood whatsoever, it's 30% officially. And even when you read the white supremacist commentaries, they say, oh, there are no Indians left in Mexico. That's convenient. It's nothing but Spaniards in Mexico. And of course, there are all the land stolen, so there's nobody to claim it. So again, back 30% officially, but it's closer to 40 or 50% that are full-blood in Mexico, because people, when they no longer live in the small towns or the larger towns where they were speaking the language, and they move into a large city, suddenly they're mixed blood. They're mixed blood because it's easier and they don't get as discriminated against by the lighter mixed bloods. So you have that as again, a residual effect even to this day. Again, people denying who they are. So you're back. I know I'm taking you with time. We're doing a little time travel back and forth. So we're going back to the Spaniards entering Tenochtitlan for the first time, and again the ruler of the Mexica, Moctezuma, decides while they're here, he doesn't know how to deal with them. It was more like his failing ended up being the failing for all of our people. The man who was the ruler had at his command 200,000 warriors. Yeah. Even if the Spaniards had landed with machine guns, you launch 100,000 warriors, they would eventually run out of ammunition. So he didn't use them. That was the biggest mistake. And when you find out what his vows were when he became ruler, as being duly elected as a ruler, the kings of Europe are not elected rulers. Then you find out that he did betray our people. For whatever his failings were, he did betray. He had a duty to protect us. And he encounters them, and he is fascinated by the Spaniards, because he was a very intellectual man, and he was more curious about them than anything else. And that was a curiosity killed the cat. Basically, ended up killing him. And then the rest of the story is they take him. Again, they're in the mi casa tu casa, and suddenly you're captive in your own house. And they demand the ransom. Fill up that room with gold. Not the last time that the Europeans did that. So you have that room being filled up with gold, and nothing really much changes. They did the same thing with the Incas, except there they actually killed the ruler of the Incas, even though he complied. So you have sometimes it's described an encounter of civilizations, a clash of civilizations. So with us, we said, hey, we're curious about you. Hey, welcome to our house. Oh, you need some food? You need a place to stay? Here, you're welcome. From the European point of view, you got gold, you got women, you got us as your masters. If you read the declaration that the Spaniards made everywhere that they went, that basically says, you are going to be subjects of the kingdom of Spain, you are going to become Christians, you're going to do this, and if you don't, we will enslave you, we will take everything you own, and you will blah, blah. And that's considered, well, what's wrong with that? There are people who today will look at the same statement and still say, what's wrong with that? And the people who say that, well, that was in those days, in those days, it's not like today. You can't hold people to the same standards back then as today. Oh, wait a minute. Did they have something called their Bible, 10 Commandments? Morality is morality. You can go to the people in New Guinea, in the most lost place. There's morality there. There's ethics. There's a simple thing, right and wrong, killing another human being. I'm sorry? Honor. Yeah, well, honor, I don't think entered into this at all. Yeah, on our part, but I'm saying as far as the Europeans, from their point of view, it was about free gold, free land, and how can you get more free gold and more free land? Kill the owners. Well, that's right, they're not really owners. They're just like the bears and the wolves. You just kill the bears and the wolves and it's your land. And that's pretty much it. to this day. Because, again, we talked about what we do at Mexica Movement. We don't just go out and do lectures. We're also involved in planning for the future of our people. Because most people don't think of any sort of future for our people other than assimilation and destruction, and how our people are going to be part of the white race. It's bonus time. That's the ideal. And where do these ideas come from? A lot of it's from TV. A lot of it comes out of the white supremacist government of Mexico. Mexico is run by white supremacists. Getting back to, I remember I was saying how clean the city of Tenochtitlan by the description of the Spaniards themselves. When the white supremacists say, oh, well, look, see, if you guys ran the U.S., it would turn into like Tijuana. I said, well, the thing is, that's when Spaniards run Mexico, because Mexico is run by white supremacists and whites. You go into the richest areas of Mexico City, or Guadalajara, Monterrey, and you will not see any indigenous people. You won't even see the light mixed people. You'll see purely European people in those areas. So you have a lot of different issues, you know, that don't get discussed. It's like for the whole Western Hemisphere, 95% of our people were killed. In some areas, 100% of our people are extinct. The people of Tierra del Fuego, that little island off the tip of South America, extinct. And different other areas, people that are extinct. Here in California, whole tribes that are extinct. And it wasn't because of battles, it was because of the use of smallpox. And that is the ugly secret of European success worldwide. And it was all because they wanted to get the gold. They wanted to get the gold. Why? So they can get the stuff. What was the stuff? The stuff that they wanted from the Middle East, that they wanted from China, that they wanted from India. Stuff. Kind of like the culture that we're in today, right? Everybody wants stuff. And you do whatever it takes. And during that whole period, yeah, the gold and silver that came out of Mexico, and the gold and silver, you know, I'm talking about not the one that was dug out of the mines and all, the sitting around gold, that was the birth of capitalism, the true birth of capitalism. Because it's like suddenly you have all of this gold and silver that you can invest. It was also what helped start off the whole banking of Europe. It helped Europe buy more ships to be able to get more people enslaved. Why did they have to enslave people out of Africa? Because they overkilled us, and they needed somebody to do the work, because white people weren't going to come here and do the work. They never thought about, gee, maybe now that we killed them all and we took their land and we got all this free gold, maybe we can do some farming ourselves. And that's not quite the way it worked. They weren't even willing to do the work that was necessary. They didn't work in the mines, they didn't work in the farms, they didn't work the plantations or the haciendas. So they brought in the Africans into the Caribbean first, because again, the population basically was down to zero. Today we think of Jamaicans, right? Those are not Jamaicans. Those are people that were brought there as slaves. There are no Jamaicans. That's another place where 100% extinction, extermination, out of a population roughly of 1 million people on that island.